President Trump threatening to take action on the West African nation of Nigeria to end the Christian population suffering at the hand of Islamic extremists. We've been covering this crisis for a while now on this show, and now Trump is speaking out against it, determined to wipe out the scourge of jihadism anywhere it rears its ugly head. Here to discuss, research analyst at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, Mariam Wahba. Mariam, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be with you today, Lydia.
During the Biden administration, Nigeria was actually removed from the list of countries of particular concern. Trump recently reversing that order, and he's now warning Nigeria that, and you know what's really interesting too, a Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson declaring support for Nigerian leadership and warning against foreign interference in the country's internal affairs. So there's a lot of layers to this. It's not just bad people that are committing atrocities. It's a government that's enabling it. And then we also have a foreign influence, our greatest adversary, also China being involved. So explain to our viewers just how expansive this Christian persecution crisis is.
Well, you are on the money here, Lydia. There's a lot of layers to unpack. But first, let me start with the president's designation of Nigeria as a CPC, or what's called a country of particular concern. Every year, the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, often called USCIRF, makes a recommendation based on their findings of what countries the United States Department of State needs to be watching for, whether it's religious freedom violations or human rights violations, and they make these recommendations to both the president and the Department of State. And the Department of State then has to make a final call about what countries actually get to be designated and what recommendations they're choosing to take. And of course, Nigeria was listed and designated as a CPC, a country of particular concern, under the first Trump administration, and then was later removed by the Biden administration, only to have President Donald Trump put it back on the CPC list just a few weeks ago. And this is not a small feat. The president acknowledging that there's a problem, acknowledging that there's jihadi Islamist threats threatening the Christian population of Nigeria is important.
You know, and what's unfortunate, too, is a lot of the media outlets, when they do cover the story, they go to great lengths to actually downplay the suffering and what's really happening. Watch this.
385 attacks were targeted against Christians, resulting in 317 deaths. But in the same period, there were 417 deaths among Muslims in 196 attacks.
I don't think you can minimize this, Abby.
No.
There's been about 100,000, upwards of 100,000 since 2009.
Hold on a second.
7,000 this year.
Hold on a second,
it's a real
Scott.
deal.
Hold on a second, Scott. I am not minimizing. Just because I'm putting facts on the table doesn't mean that I'm minimizing the deaths of anyone.
What do you think about that, Mariam?
And I think the American media has a hard time talking about it because we have a hard time understanding it. Anecdotally speaking, myself and my family belong to a Christian population in the Middle East that is heavily persecuted, and I can talk for hours about what exactly that Christian persecution in the Middle East looks like, but find me any news outlet in the Western media that is covering that persecution. And we do have to stop here and reflect on why that is. Obviously, jihadi terrorism, Islamist terrorism is a problem that affects everybody, Muslims included, Jews included, but there is an attempt to erase Christian populations in Nigeria, in Egypt, in Iraq. We've seen this decades and decades of persecution against Christians. And that isn't to say that it isn't happening to other populations, but to solve a problem, you first have to admit that you have one. And I think President Trump's statements and designation of Nigeria is a wonderful first step into admitting that there is a problem in Nigeria, and then looking forward to how can we solve this problem.
Mariam, we have less than a minute. I mean, President Trump, he's warning that America will go in guns a-blazing if Nigeria's government won't stop Islamists from killing Christians there. But why isn't the UN, right? Why isn't the UN doing anything in the meantime? I mean, why does this burden has to be on America to stop persecution, to help those that need it? Again, the UN, what are they there for?
You know, the United Nations had strayed over a mandate. A multiple institution where countries can come together to address problems and solve them eventually. And what we're seeing the UN transform into is a political, twisted organization that is more concerned with condemning the Jewish state, more condemnations of Israel over its extended period of time than any other country in the world combined. So we have to acknowledge that the UN is corrupt and is not serving its purpose, as the Trump administration has done over the last several weeks and months. And now the problem at hand, or the issue at hand, becomes how do we solve it?
Right. Mariam Wahba, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.